Hello, friends. Welcome to another PowerShell Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, we have PowerShell presentations. Lately, we've been having a good time covering the basics, covering the essentials, and we're continuing that today with Where Object. I had fun last week, but I always have more fun when I have my friends. So today, Robin, welcome to PowerShell Wednesday, my friend. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
Doing quite well. Been using Where Object for quite a while. I think it's one of those core things. We've talked before about Get Member, Get Help, the tripod, as recently covered with Stephen Judd. And that's super important to get you running commands. But as soon as you have a command that you actually need to work with, you have to start massaging that by changing the parameters on the code, by select object, by where object. It's the mechanism that you take, like the standard output from PowerShell, and actually, suit it to whatever you're doing. So where object, absolutely critical. Robin, are we using where object all the time in your world, or when do you find yourself using it?
Yeah, I'd say I use it a lot. As I said earlier, I just had a quick look through all my repos and like 400 hits in 200 files. So yeah, I use it a lot. You kind of have to do it, not to work with too many objects.
So we're going to go through some slides, but mostly we're going to talk because at the end of this, we want you to have fluency. We want you to feel comfortable. The goal is not for you to know every single edge case and the absolute way to fully maximize where object and all that kind of stuff. Our goal is to cover a bunch of use cases and some common patterns that you're going to see. And there's some interesting styling choices that you have with where object that you don't have with other commands. All right, let's get into this. So like I was saying earlier, it's core. It lets you express logic so you can filter things based on certain things. Anytime anyone asks you for anything, there's probably some conditions around that. Like if your boss is wanting to know a report on X, Y, or Z, this is how you would begin to filter on some of that if the command you're using doesn't have built-in filtering. Robin, have you noticed that difference? Like some commands will have like a dash filter, or there'll be some built-in way of doing some filtering. Do you find yourself using that, or do you find yourself using where object?
I think I usually default to where object, but I've learned that you should filter first if you can.
Yep. And I think it's actually a little bit more efficient. But if your environment's small, if you're newer to PowerShell,
Yeah.
if you're just using where object, it's not going to be the end of the world. But it's good to be aware that there's filtering in multiple places that can happen. All right. Yep. This is one of those things when you get fluent with it, you can feel confident that you can get anything from PowerShell. It's one of a handful of commands that you sort of need in your tool belt to be able to feel confident responding to your boss that you can handle a task. Also, just feeling that confidence. But what does it look like? So I mentioned earlier there's a little styling thing. So there's two different ways we can style this. We do the full-on use parameters for it. So where object property, we're going to specify the property of status. We're going to do the comparison, which is it equals running. So for everything where the status equals running, it will filter to only return those. The other way is using the curly brackets, which is where you do $_ to refer to the object in the pipeline. So each item checking the status and doing the same EQ comparison to running, but it's in the brackets. Whatever works for you is what you can do. Robin, where do you end up on this?
I think it's about 50-50, but I lean towards the curly braces more,
Me
I
too.
think. Yeah.
Me too, because to me, having a parameter -EQ is kind of confusing in how that works.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more of a standard practice for me to use $_.
Also, I learned today that you can use the -EQ anywhere in the command, like after running. So you
Yeah.
can confuse yourself more.
Yeah, you can do it anywhere. This equals this. It'll output something. Boom. Good stuff. And with anything in PowerShell, if you're ever confused, try it out. Most things are going to be pretty safe. Obviously, make sure you're trying to set every AD account. But if you have questions and you're wondering, like, how would this or that work? Try it out in your terminal. Don't be too afraid to get dabbling. Always a good reminder, though, $_, that fancy looking thing right there, that just refers to the current object in the pipeline. But let's get into some more details. This is kind of, we're wetting the whistle. It's time to dive. Whoa, completely empty page right here. And everything is gone. Boom. Hey, look at that. Is it still broken? Oh my goodness. Most common example you'll ever find in any presentation anywhere, and I like to stick with it because I think most people can wrap their minds around it. It is not the most creative. That is services. Most people have some understanding of how those work in Windows. They start, they stop. There's a couple of different statuses and properties. First thing I always do whenever I'm talking about any command is I just run it straight up. If it's a query command, you just see kind of what comes out of the box. I'm on Mac OS, so forget about that example. But yeah, that's what it would look like. All we're adding here is just a command with the pipe. And this will work, this pattern right here, running your command and then piping it to something else like where object. That is a pattern that you're going to get very familiar with. Something, where am I? Yeah, something like get child item. I'll run that and I'll see what I have. And then I'll do a select object. Okay, and then I'll do a where object. And you kind of get the idea. That's how we start constructing and building these lovely commands that are going to rule our lives in the best way, hopefully soon. There's that comparison thing, though. So we're filtering, and in order to do that, we need to have something that we're filtering on. What is the criteria that we're comparing? And so what is that comparison operator? So there's a whole bunch, and these are, again, used in different places within PowerShell. They're used a whole lot with where object, though. So let's see. So we have this. I'm not going to run all these examples. You get it EQ, equal, any, not equals. There's also help about comparison operators if you wanted to read more. That's a great place. Anytime you have like edge case questions about some PowerShell command or like, what does this one specific parameter do? Read there. Read there. You might get confused if you just try and find a blog where somebody else has done it already, where they don't cover the exact specific use case. Just get in the habit of checking those docs when possible. Welcome to everybody in the chat who just joined us. If you have any tips or things that you see that we should add, let us know, because I know everyone has some different exposure with where object. We have a greater than, less than, greater than equals, or less than and equals. And it's just like the math thing you maybe learned back in the day with the little gator, greater than, less than kind of thing. There's some other interesting comparison operators within PowerShell. I wanted to just cover a couple of these. Replace kind of is like a comparison operator, but it actually does something, which I think is kind of cool. So, and I think in the future, we'll actually do a full one on string manipulation and text file manipulation, because that's kind of its own topic. But let's try this. Replace J, just like the above example, and it'll just do an exact replace. Match, not match. Those are regex things. That's probably the edge case stuff where I won't get into a bunch of information on it today, but it's the type of thing you should be aware of, because this is where you can take things to the next level, is with using regex comparisons. Regex is so powerful. It can do the equivalent of a ton of code with just one thing. Yeah, there is also case comparisons as well. It's like C like, C not like. That can definitely come in handy if you're dealing with some case sensitive things. And there's also the containment one, which is interesting. So we have containers. So like we would do in or not in, or if the container contains or if it doesn't contain. And there's also the comparison for is. So we can compare the type of something. So if something is an object or is a string. Yeah. All right. There's also the way to combine multiple of these. So we have like and, we have or, and we have not. Kind of self-explanatory. Let me hit my fan real quick. Hey, Robin, what am I missing so far? Anything in this you think I should dive into more detail at this point? I think we're going to give some more examples later.
No, I think you have most of it. I can't think of anything else to add.
There's a lot. You don't need to memorize all this. All you need to know is that there are things out there, there are comparison operators that are going to meet your need. You might need to figure that out once you have the use case. So like if you have a case-sensitive comparison, you're going to need a case-sensitive comparison operator. So don't memorize them all today. It's all good. Oh, my computer died. All right, so this is just quite a simple one right here. We're doing the bracket version. So we're getting every single process, get process, And then for each one, we're referring to the .cpu property, checking if it's greater than 200. And that's GT. That's not GTE. If it were GTE, that's greater than equals 200 would trigger that. And then it doesn't, or if the working set is greater than 500 megabytes. So we have two things that could satisfy our need. That's how you would do it. And that can get pretty fancy. But for maybe 9 out of 10 times with what you're going to be doing with Where Object, it'll actually be probably a pretty simple filter, because there's just little things you need to kind of filter out here and there.
Yeah.
As you use it in the command line, like here, like I just said, if I run like a get child item, okay, that has what I need. And then I do the next thing and the next thing. As you press the up arrow key and do the pipe, I oftentimes will just do a question mark if I'm in the terminal kind of going. And if it's such a command you use as often as where object, it could be helpful for you when you're in the terminal. Where is another really helpful abbreviation. Same thing as like select object. I use select a lot. I'll use where a lot. And this is an example of it, a little bit shortened. Mostly good for interactive, quite a bit less good if you're going to be saving this to your scripts. In fact, definitely recommend against that. All right.
You can also set code formatting rules in VS Code.
Oh, yeah.
To
format
expand.
on save.
Yeah.
Yep. You can definitely set some great stuff in VS Code that will make your life a lot easier, and you won't really have to think about it. And definitely recommend checking out Justin Grody's talk on VS Code that was released maybe like 2 or 3 months ago from PowerShell Conference Europe. If someone messages me that on Discord, I will share that in the YouTube chat. But let's talk about a concept we talked about last time that is really important, and it's a rule. You filter to the left, you format to the right. So if we imagine the pipeline, the left is where it starts, the right is where it ends. Towards the left, we want to filter. At the very end is when we want to format. We covered it. We'll just run this real quick, okay? So what are we doing here? We're grabbing all of our services. We're formatting that as a table, and then we're trying to filter using where object. Let's just run this real quickie. Bingo bongo. Boom, get service. Okay. Sorry about that. Forget that I'm on Mac still. I've been, I got a new Windows machine, and I've been playing a bunch with it after work hours, and I have been just changing hotkeys all the time. All right, let's just try this. So formatted on the name, we get a table. It has some properties. Maybe, is that a thing? That's a thing. Okay. Get a couple things. And if we wanted to where object it, dude, what am I doing here? Am I crazy? Not sure why it wasn't terminating there, but yeah, it gives you nothing. You do this. Get child item where object name like exp. That returns something. And then at the very end, once we have our result, then we format table if you want to. I don't really like to format too often. Do you find yourself formatting too often, Robin?
No, I've stopped. It gave me too much headache. Yeah, it turns the input object to a whole another object.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the pattern I've seen early on when you only can think in terms of what you're seeing on the console.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. As soon as you get to move beyond that, it's a lot less helpful. I'd certainly say. So we covered that. Good example, filtering by date, because that's a little bit weird. And dates and the way they're handled, what you're going to see here with the get date.add days thing, that's going to satisfy a whole bunch of your needs. Add days, add minutes. I think there's a bunch of other things you can add to a date object. But this is a cool example. We'll just get child item. We'll just do the current directory where underscore dot last write time greater than get date dot add days -7. So -7 means we're going 7 days in the past. So we're adding a negative, means we're just basically taking away. You got to put your math hat on. It's funny how this is like, so it reminds me so much of school, the basic rules.
Somehow I have always little bit of trouble to do math with days or get date.
Yeah. Yeah. But as you can see these little curly braces, that means you can run PowerShell. Anytime you see that the script block thing, I think Justin was speaking to that a little bit. As soon as you see that, you're free. You're off to the races. You can do all kinds of PowerShell stuff. Whenever you do the little parentheses thing, that's a great way to contain and then be able to access properties on it. And that's what we're doing with this getDate.addDays thing. We're running getDate, and then we're just accessing the addDays method and doing something with it. Matthew Hardy has a great question here. Is it better to assign getDate.addDays -7 to a variable so it only has to work it out once? I think if you're going to refer to that query multiple times, for sure. Like if you're going to have multiple getDate calls, you should probably only do one. I think a great example of that's with like log files. If you're creating a log file based on the current time, you don't want to, I mean, you might, but you may not want to have a new log file every single time you log something because the seconds are going to be different than when you last wrote to it. Good question, Matthew Hardy. All right, what else are we looking at here? Yeah, absolutely. Combining this with select object, I say that's for peak PowerShell. It's kind of true. That's when we're really cooking. You have your core commands, get process, get service, get AD computer, get Azure, Entra, whatever you have that stuff to query or set things. And then you need to massage it to fit your needs. Where object, select object, you're gonna be using those a whole bunch of the time. And if you find yourself connecting things like that, you're in for a great experience in front of you because the world is your oyster at that point. There's a lot of stuff you can do without knowing how to do this stuff with PowerShell, which is awesome. There's way more when you feel like you have control over what you can do. You don't just have to do the easy path that's given from you. Yep. Okay. This is cool. And this one confuses me a lot. This is one of those things where it's like, I've learned it so many times, I always forget the exact way to do it every single time, without exception. Let me change my little view here so we can get a little bit of a, oh my gosh, we're teeny tiny, huh? That'll work. Hi. So filtering by array contents. Let's check this out. All right. So you have a variable. I've had variables before, and they have some values in it, maybe names, maybe computer names or something like that. I wonder if any of these are going to work. Let's try this though. All right, I'm going to try and find a process using PowerShell real quick. I'm thinking of like VS Code since I have it open. I don't remember what the name of it is. Apparently code is not the name of it. We're going to use where object for this. I think I could do it on the actual command, but if you know a method in PowerShell, there's multiple ways to solve something. So we're going to do, I like the brackets, name, like, and I'm going to do some stars because I don't know, but I know code is somewhere in the name. So we'll go down from there. If it doesn't return what I want, we can do something else. We're going to get all the processes on my computer. Hopefully one of them has code in there somewhere. Okay, that's a lot more than I thought. It's not what I was expecting. Dude, I don't even see Visual Studio. Dude, am I crazy?
No.
Well, I guess I could look at all of them. I don't really want to look at all my live processes right now. But I guess you'd find one. We'll find Chrome maybe. That's a better one to look for. Star, Chrome, star. Holy crap. A lot of rendering going on here. All right, so I see a lot. I scroll up and I see, what am I looking for? Okay, Google Chrome looks to be the name. So as I start to filter, okay, this is too much information. I can get rid of these asterisks and type in Google, hit a little space. That looks to be what I just saw. Bada boom. That is an example flow of you're running something in PowerShell, you're looking to find something. You don't really know exactly what you're looking for, but you're trying to discover. If you can't discover what you're doing with PowerShell, it's going to be a little harder to write a script. You need to kind of play around to figure out what you're trying to do. Okay. That being said, let us do names equals boom. We'll also add Google Chrome to our list of names. And we can run names.count to make sure. Oh my gosh, it's 4. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? All right. There you go. I ran the command git process, and I was just checking if the name is in my list of names. Okay, this could be a humongous list of usernames that are affected by something, and you want to run through a list and verify that these users or computers are affected or whatever. Pretty helpful thing to know about. And if you get confused, just look it up again, like I have to every single time.
Yeah. Also, doesn't dash contain behave in the opposite way? You have to like use the array to the left.
Yep, I believe so.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I get confused so much, because I just think of them like in, not in, contains, not contains. I think of them all as the same kind of. You're just comparing size of things, or if something's in something else, rather. Curious people out there who are using these a lot. Are you using in or contains more? And is there actually a difference? I honestly don't even know. Always trusting Justin Grody to drop in with a great comment.
Isn't it something like one compares the whole word or matches the whole word or something, and the other one matches partially? Or I can't remember exactly. I also have to look it up every time.
I'm pulling up the help about comparison operators, and then there is contains. Yep. I'll post a link to it. For some reason, I was having an issue with this command working earlier. Yeah. I ran update help already, but yeah, check it out. I will post this in the YouTube link real quick in the YouTube chat, I should say. Boom. Gotcha. Yeah, there's some subtle differences. Again, it's the type of thing, don't let that hang you up from using where object. That's one of the more things you're not going to probably encounter every single day. If you just get your reps in with where object, it'll be easy to add that little, oh, wait, I need to do this exact specific thing. You look it up, you solve your problem. Okay, cool. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, same thing with same kind of comparisons. These can be done for all sorts of things. If there's a property on an object, you can filter on it. And there's a lot of objects that have a lot of properties that if you're like a normal person going about IT life, you're going to have no clue what those mean. And that was my experience. Like something like working set, man, you kind of know it's like CPU, computer engineering stuff. I don't actually know what it is. So you end up kind of having to look these things up to discover if it has exactly what you want. I know Microsoft, there's a lot of property names that are quite long. And sometimes the properties that you're looking for are those ones that are very cryptically named, especially in Exchange, I found. Some good chatter going on now.
Yeah.
All right. Real world example. We kind of have done a little bit so far. This is exactly what I'm talking about, though. The way we would start this, and again, I'm on a Mac machine, so I can't actually run this right now. Sorry about that. You'd query something. You get a bunch of data back. It's too much data. Most commands are going to provide more than you need unless you're filtering, right? By the nature of them. From there, you figure out what you need. Maybe you look online, or someone in security tells you, hey, we need to get information about 4625 in the security log. Okay, you can create that filter for yourself. Then you filter out the exact information that you need, and you go about your merry way. You can create CSVs on that, do automations, whatever you need from there. It's funny how subtle being able to do something like this is. It's not the most confusing thing in the world. It's kind of confusing when you add the pipeline and learning other stuff in PowerShell, but when you can add just this little bit of extra knowledge, it is wild how much more stuff you can accomplish with PowerShell. And from what I've seen with AI, a lot of times I've seen issues with the filtering. Like that will be where the script will fail if I do some quick generated code. And without knowing PowerShell, it's going to be very much not fun to look at those curly braces, the $ underscores, and all that stuff. If you've never interacted with it before, good luck. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay, that's the basics right there. I got a scary AI story to tell you in just a second here. But let's wrap it up. All right, Robin, we covered a bunch of stuff, but there's some key things you just got to remember. You don't need to remember everything. That's cool. I don't remember it all. You need to use it to filter. That's what where object is for. It is your go-to filtering. Some commands have filtering built in. Use those if you want to. For certain things, it's really required. If you're querying a whole bunch of stuff, filter as early as possible. But where object always there for you. There's a ton of operators. You can do anything that you're trying to do. Just might need to kind of construct it if it's a very advanced use case. You have logic and the constant filter left, format right. That's going to be something forever. All right. That's PowerShell Wednesday in a nutshell, everybody. Get to using where object. We're going to keep building from here. I really want to do that text manipulation one soon, because so many people are dealing with text files in one way or another. If you're able to search and manipulate and replace things, it's a whole different amount of power that you can wield with PowerShell. Robin, thank you, my friend, for joining me on PowerShell Wednesday. Thank you, everybody out there. We'll see you next Wednesday. Same time, same place. New podcast dropped this Monday. I don't know if you heard it yet, Robin, but I interviewed Seemingly Science, aka Patrick Meineke from Microsoft. Oh my, what a cool story, and what a great person, honestly. Patrick, he was a community person for a long time, just like on GitHub active. And then fast forward a little bit, he actually works for Microsoft now. So it's cool. We have a lot of insiders, people who started in the community and now work on the team.